I'm sorry.
So, I get along alright with my parents.
Sorry, Dad.
I mean, they're pretty cool.
Seriously.
And I know they trust me.
Please, Dad. Come
You know,
on, Dad.
they trust me.
Come on, Dad. Come on, Dad. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. I'm gonna kill you. Let me in.
Hello, my name's Penny. I think people shouldn't do drugs. They can make you forget things, like which animals have stripes. And your body might get clumsier, so you can't jump rope as good. Drugs can get you in big trouble. You could go to principal's office or go to jail. Then you can't watch TV or eat pizza. Recess is good. Hamsters are good. Birthday parties are real good. Drugs are bad. I wouldn't do drugs.
Looking for a place where faith breaks boundaries? Welcome to BIFR, Bullet in Flight Radio, an inclusive, progressive community of Christ followers, sharing real stories and bold ideas. This is your radio for hope, growth, and daring faith. Your story, our station. Tune in for new episodes every Friday and join believers who refuse to stay small. Visit https://www.just-dominic.com to listen and become part of the flight.
No one knew her real name. There was no introduction, no recorded lineage, no backstory, just a brief phrase, the Queen of Sheba, as if the Bible had only cracked open a door, leaving us to step into the shadowed mystery behind it. But she had once walked this earth. And when she entered Jerusalem, with a long caravan trailing behind her, camels laden with gold and spices, the silence surrounding her could no longer be dismissed. The entire city seemed to hold its breath. No one had ever seen a woman travel. So far, not to wage war, not to seek marriage, but to ask. A woman on a throne, leaving her country behind, just to meet a man renowned for his wisdom. Why did she go? Out of curiosity? Politics? Or was it something else, something unreachable by power alone? The Bible doesn't say. But there's one tiny detail, so small, it's easy to miss. Centuries later, Jesus himself spoke of her, not as a symbol of royalty, but as an example for those who know how to seek. He called her the Queen of the South, the one who will rise at the judgment, because she'd left her distant land in search of the wisdom of God. What does that mean? It means that among the thousands who met Solomon, only she was remembered by the Lord. There must have been something very real about her journey, something that anyone who has ever felt empty in the midst of abundance might understand. And if you've ever asked, "Does anyone see me?" then this story is for you. They called that land Sheba, a southern kingdom where the sun scorched both sand and spirit. But within this realm of frankincense, pure gold, and thriving merchant fleets lived a woman who could not be easily satisfied. Even as a child, she was unlike the others. While young girls were taught how to be demure in front of men, she would sit quietly by a window, listening to her father debate scholars. While elders boasted of caravans crossing the desert, she would ask, "Why do we offer gifts to idols that never respond?" Years passed. Her father died young. She rose to power, a queen too young, surrounded by courts of men. Everyone expected her to fail, but Sheba didn't fall. Under her rule, the kingdom thrived, prospering more than ever before. Her ships sailed farther. Her merchants praised her name. No enemy dared to invade, and yet there was one thing she could not conquer: the silence within herself. At night, when no one was watching, she lay awake, not from fear of losing the throne, but because of a void that no crown could fill. All the power, all the praise, all the possessions. None of it quieted the ache that asked, "Who am I? Where did I come from? And if everything I have turns to dust, what remains when I die?" No one knew about this longing. During grand banquets, she still smiled, raised her glass, and spoke with sharp wit. But deep down, She felt like a woman seated on a throne whose heart belonged elsewhere. Then one day, while receiving a Jewish merchant, she heard of a king in the north, Solomon, a ruler known not just for governing well, but for possessing wisdom given by the Lord. They said he could read the heart, he could explain what no one else could, and more than that, he didn't keep his wisdom to himself. She went silent. Could there truly be someone, somewhere, who not only knew how to speak, but how to listen? That night, she stood on the palace rooftop for a long time. The wind carried the scent of the distant sea, and as the moonlight settled into her heavy eyes, she spoke just one sentence: "Prepare the camels, I will go." No one understood why a queen would abandon her throne just to meet a man in the distant north. Some said she was forging an alliance, others whispered that she came to challenge King Solomon, but the truth is, no one knew. She never offered an explanation. Perhaps even she couldn't have said exactly why she left. All she knew was this: if she stayed, she would slowly die inside the very things others called success. Sheba was a land of wealth, but her soul had nothing left to cling to. And if there truly was a place where questions could be answered, where the mind could rest, where the soul could finally be still, then even across the desert she had to go. The journey took months. Her caravan carried not only gold, jewels, and spices, but also sleepless nights and lingering doubts. As they crossed scorching lands and rested beneath starlit skies, she found no peace. Her mind was crowded with thoughts no one had ever answered. On certain nights, the wind would stir the silk walls of her tent, and she'd sit alone, holding a worn little journal. Inside were questions she had written since girlhood, questions no one ever wanted to hear, questions the court priests always brushed aside. Do the gods really hear us? Why do the innocent suffer? How can we tell wisdom from clever lies? And if there truly is a God who knows all, does he know me? No answers came. Only the flicker of firelight, the hush of desert wind, and a heart caught between belief and doubt. Once her closest advisor asked quietly, "Your Majesty, why must we travel so far to hear one man speak? Wisdom already surrounds us here." She didn't turn to him. She simply replied, "I don't need more words. I need the truth." After that, no one asked again. Then one early morning, as the sun broke over the eastern hills, the lead rider halted his horse and shouted, "Jerusalem! We see his city!" The queen stepped out of her tent without a word. She gazed at the city for a long time, as if something within her had just awakened. Jerusalem welcomed her with drums, banners, and the wide-eyed stares of thousands. But she paid little attention to any of it. From the moment she entered the city, she knew this place was not what she came for. The one she sought was behind those palace doors. And he, not the city, was the reason for her journey. When she walked into Solomon's court, she did not bow. She was a queen, and she had crossed deserts and seas to be here. Her lips were silent, but her eyes carried a quiet challenge. Solomon didn't act surprised. He rose, stepped down from the throne, and greeted her not as royalty, but as if she were an old friend. It was not about formality. It was about respect. No one recorded how long their conversation lasted, but the Bible says she came to test him with hard questions, and that Solomon answered everything she asked. Nothing was too difficult for him. It sounds like a contest of riddles, but it was so much more than that. The questions she brought weren't for shallow minds. She didn't ask about politics, profit, or war. She asked the kind of questions only those who've lain awake at night could ask. How do you stay honest when you have the power not to? Why are the weak still forgotten in a kingdom ruled by a just God? Is the loneliness of leadership a kind of punishment? How can I know if the voice inside me is from God or from fear? Solomon didn't answer like a teacher. He listened like someone who understood. He didn't debate. He didn't try to impress. He told stories. Stories of when he was young and arrogant. Stories of nights when wisdom didn't bring him joy, only tears. Stories of moments when he laid his crown aside just to ask himself, "Can I still hear his voice?" She went quiet. This wasn't what she expected. The queen had come to test a king. But in the end, she was the one exposed. All the armor she had worn since childhood, her pride, her defenses, her sharp intellect, no longer protected the wounds hidden beneath. Solomon didn't try to win her over with brilliance. He answered her pain with his own. He didn't just know things. He had suffered, and maybe that was what true wisdom really looked like. And Solomon, he didn't try to win. He simply looked at her without judgment and said, "No one has come from so far just to ask, and no one has asked like you, just to see." They sat together for a long time, long after the attendants had left, long after the lamps were dimmed. Two souls remained, not king and queen anymore, just two human beings, people who once believed they had it all, and now understood they had only been searching. That night there were no flutes, no praises sung, no torches flickering in the palace gardens, just the open sky stretched above the rooftop and a woman sitting alone in the wind, no attendants, no crown, only her and the things she couldn't say out loud. Since arriving in Jerusalem, she had never been this quiet. By day she was sharp, poised, unreadable. But now, with no one left to impress, she found herself face to face with a strange emptiness. And in that stillness, she realized something that surprised even her. She no longer needed the answers. She didn't need an explanation for why her heart had felt so hollow beneath a crown. She didn't need a philosophy to understand why tears sometimes came in the dark without reason. She had brought hundreds of questions, but what she received wasn't explanation. It was presence. The presence of someone who wasn't a stranger at all, but who seemed to have seen her even before she ever spoke. And behind that man, behind his calm, unguarded wisdom, was someone else. A presence she had never named. Solomon may have been wise, but she knew that kind of wisdom wasn't his to claim. It came from a source he dared not own. A source so real that it made her, who had once stood before 100 idols, now tremble before something far greater than logic, beyond understanding, beyond pride. There was no thunder, no flashes of lightning, but something inside her cracked, open, softly, and without resistance. It was like a child who had wandered too far, returning home in the night to find the light still on. She looked up to the sky. Once the heavens had seemed like myth, not anymore. She didn't cry, but if someone had walked by, they might have noticed a strange light in her eyes, as if, in the deepest part of her, she had heard a voice, never spoken aloud. "I see you." No. One saw her leave the palace that night, but by morning, everyone in the city knew something had changed. The curious glances were gone. The regal arrogance had softened. What remained was a quietness that didn't come from exhaustion, but from someplace deeper, where the soul finally stopped struggling. She spoke less, smiled more gently, and when the royal officials in her entourage asked if she had found what she came for, she answered only, "I have heard and I have seen." This was a woman who had once traveled far in search of an answer, but now she no longer needed one. Because in the end, what she had found was not an explanation, but a presence. A presence who knew every question she had, ever carried, and still loved her, even when she hadn't yet admitted she needed him. That morning, before the sun had risen above the rooftops of Jerusalem, the Queen of Sheba's caravan was already stirring. Her servants carefully packed the crates of gold, the jars of fragrant spices, the glittering gems she had once brought as royal offerings. The palace gates opened, courtiers bowed, but no one noticed what she truly left behind. To them, she was just another royal guest who came bearing treasures and left with a few wise sayings. But hidden among the silver and silk, there was a gift no one could measure, a gift unrecorded by scribes, not displayed in any treasury, and impossible to store in the vaults of kings. It was a gift given from the heart. They say that after their final conversation, Solomon became quieter. He no longer debated with the same intensity before foreign delegations. He spent more time in the temple. Some scholars believe that it was after her visit that he began writing words, no longer polished and proud, but full of longing, like in Ecclesiastes or the aching love poems of Song of Songs. Some say she left him a cloth, embroidered with words from the south. Others believe she left behind a song Solomon played only once, then kept hidden forever in a quiet room. But what is more certain than any of these is this: she left a mark on him, a deep mark, one that no wealth could rival, a person who truly understood him, not for his power, not for his fame, but for the loneliness he tried to bury. And what she gave, she didn't give to Solomon alone. Ancient scrolls tell a legend that she returned to Sheba carrying new life, perhaps a son, perhaps a daughter. No one knows for sure, but in many East African traditions, she is remembered as the mother of a royal bloodline, one that began with a woman who searched and a man who listened. Was that her real gift? A life born not just of affection, but of awakening. Whatever the truth, what she brought to Jerusalem didn't end there. It passed beyond the city gates, beyond history books, beyond the assumptions of those who saw her as nothing more than a foreign queen. Her truest gift couldn't be held in hand, but it did what no caravan could ever do. It changed a heart, and for those who have traveled far seeking something they can't name and returned with something no one else can see, maybe they understand. The deepest things are rarely written down. They are only remembered by those who've been touched by them. She returned as quietly as she had come. No extravagant procession, no proclamation of victory, just the desert wind tugging at her robes and eyes that seemed to no longer belong entirely to this world. Sheba was the same. Marble palaces, bowing, officials, hills scented with frankincense, but she was no longer the same. Those in her court noticed a difference. She spoke less, rarely joined the lavish feasts. More often, she walked alone through the sunlit courtyards, fingers brushing over the hot stone walls, as if searching for something she had awakened within. No one knew if she believed. There was no baptism, no foreign altar erected in the palace, but her choices began to speak for her. Decisions that had once been sharp as swords now flowed gentle as rivers. She pardoned a man once condemned for treason. She commissioned a home for the elderly, the first of its kind in her kingdom. And above all, she began to write, not royal decrees, but small personal passages. Notes meant perhaps for her child, or maybe for future generations. Writings that didn't preach or instruct, but quietly told the story of a woman who once had everything and gave it all up to ask a single question: does anyone see me? Then one day, she stopped writing. No one knew why. But from that day on, her face seemed lighter, as if she had finally learned something that no longer needed to be said, only lived. She no longer needed to keep asking the old questions, because her life itself had become the answer. And the kingdom changed with her, in ways no one could explain. Traders from distant lands whispered that Sheba had grown more peaceful, more just, and its people kinder. No one knew why, but they said quietly, perhaps the queen had met someone in the north. And though she never spoke of it, everyone could feel it. She had once gone in search of wisdom, but when she returned, she did not carry a teaching. She carried a faith. One without a name, without doctrine, just truth, and that truth was enough to change a nation. Jesus once said, "The Queen of the South will rise at the judgment, for she came from the ends of the earth to listen to the wisdom of Solomon." And now, something greater than Solomon is here. He didn't mention her name. He didn't spell out her story. But he remembered her journey. A journey made in silence, unnoticed by most, yet powerful enough to stand as witness for the world, because there's a truth many are afraid to admit. We are all searching. Whether seated on thrones or curled up in small, quiet rooms, human beings keep asking deep within, do I get to be seen? Is there someone who hears my quiet sighs, someone who understands the questions I'm too afraid to speak? The Queen of Sheba dared to ask. She left everything behind to seek something she wasn't even sure existed. And because she did, she encountered the one who had seen her all along. Not everyone can make a journey to Jerusalem, but every longing heart can be answered, not through arguments, but through presence. You don't need every question in your soul resolved. Sometimes all it takes is someone who truly sees you, and that's enough. Many people live their whole lives never being truly seen. But if you've ever been like her, if you've dared to face the emptiness, if you've stepped beyond comfort in search of something real, then maybe, just maybe, this story is for you. Maybe you're a little like her, and if God could see her, then maybe he sees you too. If something in this story resonated with you, leave us a comment. Tell us, what are you searching for? And if this video touched something in your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Mystical Bible Stories, where every story is here to remind you, you are not alone on your journey.
Hello, everyone. This is Bishop Natasha Ellison from Come Alive Outreach, and you're listening to Bullet in Flight Radio, your story, our station, the best progressive Christian network in the world.
Thanks to her cameo in the Bible and the many movie and TV adaptations of her story, the Queen of Sheba is one of the most famous and mysterious women of the ancient world. But there's a lot more to her than her relationship with King Solomon. Here's the true story of the Queen of Sheba. If we're going to talk about the Queen of Sheba, then we've got to ask a pretty obvious question. Where exactly is Sheba? Well, one theory, illustrated by the BBC, posits that Sheba refers to the Sabaean kingdom in what is now Yemen. So, if the queen were heading over to Israel to meet King Solomon, that would make for a really long trek through modern-day Saudi Arabia. Of course, that trip wouldn't be impossible for a determined queen with access to a lot of camels. However, the country that claims the Queen of Sheba most strongly is Ethiopia. Yes, it's a little further from Israel than Yemen. It's also landlocked thanks to the present-day country of Somalia. But Christian Science Monitor confirms that Ethiopia had a lot of interaction with Israel and its neighboring nations back in the day as a country that served as a gateway to the Middle East. Need proof? Well, present-day Ethiopians' DNA is 40 to 50% based outside of Africa. Languages that originated in the Middle East are spoken in Ethiopia, and the two regions even share farming techniques and crops. There's a lot of weirdness around King Solomon and the Queen, but one thing that would make total sense is the political intrigue around the Queen of Sheba's land. After all, folks were constantly going to war over territory, and King Solomon may have been wise, but even he might have fallen for all that potential gold and incense. According to Jewish Encyclopedia, Jewish legends describe the land of Sheba as incredibly rich in both population and wealth. On top of that, the dust of the country was said to be more valuable than gold. So, as the story goes, King Solomon commanded the Queen of Sheba to come see him under threat of invasion. She responded by saying that not only would she come, but she would show up in 3 years instead of the normal 7 it would take for her to travel to Jerusalem. Thus began the one-upmanship turned seduction between the two of them. So King Solomon is suddenly visited by this beautiful and tremendously rich queen from a foreign land. Given that Solomon famously had 700 wives and 300 concubines, it's not a stretch to think that he quickly developed amorous designs on the Queen of Sheba. There's no way to know for sure, but the Ethiopian people believe their first emperor, Menelik I, was indeed the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Translations of ancient writings maintain that King Solomon laid his best moves upon the queen, and they got together. But according to some tales, it's a little more complicated than that, as one legend suggests he had to trick her into his bed. Not exactly the most romantic way to have a child together. So let's assume that the Queen of Sheba hailed from modern-day Ethiopia. If that's the case, then there's a good chance that her ancient palace lies in an area known as the Tigray region. This section of Ethiopia contains over 100 ancient churches, most of which are still used and all of which are carved into white rocks. Visitors can spy the remnants of an ancient city, including a 1,600-foot-tall white obelisk that's considered the tallest stone ever erected by humans. According to National Geographic, the site also includes underground royal catacombs and a giant gold mine that might have been the source of all those gifts to Solomon. But here's where we come to the complicated part. It's not 100% confirmed that the Queen of Sheba lived in Ethiopia. Some monuments associated with her are 1,000 years off base from when she would have lived. But archaeological digs have confirmed royal seals were found in Axum, which used to be the capital of the Aksumite Empire. And as of 2018, the region was only 10% excavated. In other words, more proof of the Queen's life in Africa may yet emerge. Some people don't think she was from Ethiopia at all, though, but rather Nigeria. Under this theory, the tomb of the Queen of Sheba is widely believed to be outside of a village called Okiri. Thousands of people come every year to honor and pay respects to the Queen. The grave itself is super impressive, surrounded by ruins and ancient buildings, because of course the Queen would be buried within her impressive kingdom. Well, assuming it's where she's actually buried anyway. Other legends say the ruins are a monument to another rich woman from antiquity named Bilikisa Sungbo, who lived much later than the Queen of Sheba. Scientists are still studying the ruins to determine the truth, but so far it remains a mystery. Anyone who's studied ancient civilizations will tell you that spices were an easy way to know how cool your kingdom was.
He who controls the spice controls the universe.
If you had the flavors and crops people wanted, selling them was an easy way to get rich. The Bible confirms that the Queen of Sheba gave Solomon lots of gold and precious stones in addition to loads of spices. It goes on to say, there had never been such spices as those the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Spices were sometimes given as tributes to kings, so this was a flattering move and a one-up challenge to Solomon at the same time. It's also consistent with other accounts of people from Sheba in the Bible who similarly came with loads of spices to trade. So what spices did the queen show up with? The Bible doesn't go into detail, however, we can make a pretty educated guess. A fact sheet put out by the Netherlands African Business Council listed turmeric, ginger, and korarima as spices grown in the country. And it's safe to assume that King Solomon had probably tasted nothing like what the queen sprinkled on his food. The Queen of Sheba is surrounded by bizarre stories and strange legends, but one of the weirdest is so mystical that it's probably not based in any truth at all. Or, at the very worst, perhaps King Solomon gave rise to this particular tale because he was grossed out by body hair on a woman. The story starts with King Solomon hearing rumors that the Queen of Sheba had hairy legs and the feet of a goat. He heard it from a genie in his court. Seriously. Well, more accurately, it was a jinn. The jinn was worried that King Solomon would want to marry this gorgeous queen, but instead of disgust, the king was fascinated. He ordered a glass floor to be built in order to trick the queen into thinking it was water. And then, when she lifted up her skirt to walk over the water, her hairy legs were revealed. Kinda pervy. The cause for the goat's foot was that her mother supposedly craved goat meat when she was pregnant with the queen. PBS tells one version of the story where the queen's hoof transforms into a normal foot. But there's another version where King Solomon saw she had hairy legs and ordered the jinn to fetch her a hair removal cream. After all, there was no way he was going to let one of the most powerful women in history get away, hairy legs or not. All of this diplomacy and one-upmanship between King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba doesn't mean they had a lot in common. If she was from Ethiopia, she was from a completely different continent and was exposed to completely different cultural forces than what King Solomon was pushing on a daily basis. Even if she came from Yemen, that was practically a different corner of the world in that day and age. And when it came to religion, the two had very different viewpoints about what deity was calling the shots. In some tellings of the story, the Queen of Sheba ruled over a kingdom that worshipped the sun. King Solomon sent her a letter asking if she and her followers could pretty please start worshiping the Jewish god instead. The queen sent King Solomon gifts in response. When he didn't respond to the gifts, she made the epic trek over to his palace. From there, the story largely runs close to what's in the Bible, but there's one important addition. After listening to the wisdom of King Solomon and being amazed at his giant pimped-out palace, the queen eventually converted to Judaism. Today, there's a huge Jewish heritage in Ethiopia and surrounding areas by way of the Beta Israel religious group. So King Solomon working to impress a way out of his league queen may have spawned an entire religious culture. Josephus was one of the great historians of the ancient world, and according to him, the Queen of Sheba brought a mysterious plant called balsam to the Holy Land. What's so mysterious about this particular type of flora? Well, we're not exactly sure what Josephus meant. At the moment, the best guess is that he was talking about the bright tropical flower in the genus Impatiens. The Old Farmer's Almanac describes the plant as desiring shade and water. That would have guaranteed it as a status symbol for people living in the hot, dry regions of the African continent. And the fact that it attracts birds and has seed pods that simultaneously burst would have made it absolutely freakish to King Solomon. But there are potentially different definitions for balsam that shouldn't be ignored. It can also refer to fragrant perfume or a resin that's extracted from plants, so it's possible that the queen blew Solomon's mind with an otherworldly scent. We don't hear much about Ethiopia in the Bible, but the queen and her son ensured that the country would forever have a place in modern biblical scholarship. The story goes that Menelik made a journey to Jerusalem to see his dad. Once he showed up, he was welcomed with open arms. In fact, King Solomon loved his newly found son so much that he asked Menelik to stay and rule the land after he passed away. Menelik refused and said he would return home, but he went above and beyond, leaving in the middle of the night with the freaking Ark of the Covenant. Was this revenge because what his birth dad did to his mom? We'll never know, but it's a definite power move to take the Ark out of a Jewish holy city and into the rainforest. Granted, a lot of this is myth and legend, but to this day, Ethiopian priests protect what they believe to be the Ark in Axum, Ethiopia. It's protected under the watch of monks that may or may not be trained to kill with their bare hands. Why weren't these guys in the cast of Raiders of the Lost Ark? The country of Ethiopia accepts the Queen of Sheba as the queen mother of their people. Why wouldn't you, right? Her son brought the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia, and she had that very kid with a king blessed by God. That's true icon status, and it's led to some people considering Ethiopians to be the chosen people of God. In fact, the descendants of the queen have official divine right to rule in Ethiopia, a rule that was officially inscribed into the Ethiopian constitution in 1955. And back in the 19th century, she played an important role in a political power struggle. See, a lot of what we know about the Queen of Sheba comes from an Ethiopian holy book called the Kebra Nagast, and evidently whoever wields this thing has a whole lot of power. In 1872, King Johannes IV of Ethiopia begged Queen Victoria in a letter. There was a book called Kebra Nagast, which contains the law of the whole of Ethiopia. I pray you will find out who has got this book and send it to me, for in my country my people will not obey my orders without it. Thankfully, Victoria returned the book from England. King Johannes no doubt thought that having the inscription of formal Ethiopian law would win him favor over his rivals. And it just goes to show how much power the Queen of Sheba has had for years upon years, where even a book with her name in it can make or break a king. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite historical figures are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.
Hello everybody, this is Sue A. Webley of Carrot Solutions LLC, and you're listening to Bullet in Flight Radio. Your story, our station. The best progressive Christian network in the world.
I love you, so stop fooling around. The sun is...
Looking for a place where faith breaks boundaries? Welcome to BIFR, Bullet in Flight Radio, an inclusive, progressive community of Christ followers, sharing real stories and bold ideas. This is your radio for hope, growth, and daring faith. Your story, our station. Tune in for new episodes every Friday and join believers who refuse to stay small. Visit https://www.just-dominic.com to listen and become part of the flight.
Did the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon of Israel really meet? What kind of relationship did they have? Welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please, if you've not already done so, take a few seconds to click on the subscribe button. Thank you. Now, the Ethiopian Empire, also known as Abyssinia, covered the area of present-day Ethiopia and Eritrea. It came into some kind of formal existence around 1270 AD. The Solomonic dynasty ruled the empire until 1974, when the monarchy under Emperor Haile Selassie was overthrown in a Marxist coup d'etat. The country of Ethiopia, as we know it today, is therefore one of the oldest nation states in the world. It is the only black African nation to successfully resist the scramble for Africa by colonial powers during the 19th century. Ethiopia only succumbed very briefly to Italian occupation in 1935, but was liberated during World War II. Before then, Italy had tried to invade Ethiopia unsuccessfully. In 1896, Ethiopia defeated the invading Italian army, which only succeeded at that time in capturing Eritrea. Ethiopia has served as a source of pride and inspiration for Africans and Africans in the diaspora. This is illustrated by the works of creative writers as far back as Phyllis Whitley. I've already done an episode about the life of this remarkable woman. So if you've not yet watched it, make time to do so, and please help share word about her video and others in this series with your friends and contacts. Now, another way to appreciate the role of Ethiopia as a source of pride to Africans and Africans in the diaspora is reflected in the reception of the medieval Ethiopian texts known as the Kebra Nagast, or the Glory of Kings. It's a chronicle of Ethiopia's royal line, and it records a version of the seduction of the Queen of Sheba by King Solomon. Now, unlike the biblical version, the Kebra Nagast is prevalent amongst continental Africans as well as some Africans in the diaspora, because it relates how the Ark of the Covenant came to Ethiopia with Solomon and Sheba's offspring. I will come to how the Ark of the Covenant and Ethiopia in a later episode, so watch out for it. Anyway, so the Kebra Nagast records how the Ark of the Covenant came to be in Ethiopia with the son of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. His name was Menelik I. Now, while the story of the Queen of Sheba and Solomon in the Bible does not admit to any amorous relationship between the two of them, the Kebra Nagast does so. As a matter of fact, even some biblical scholars do not acknowledge the fact that Sheba is actually part of Ethiopia. Rather, some biblical scholars try to situate the Queen of Sheba's country somewhere in the southern part of Arabia. Please check out the notes on 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 1 of the 2003 edition of the Quest Study Bible. Now, so unlike the biblical version of the story, Kebra Nagast's version relates how the Queen of Sheba travels to Jerusalem to visit Solomon in order to explore his famous knowledge and wisdom. However, the night before her return journey home, Solomon tricks her into sleeping with him and gives her a ring so that in case she becomes pregnant, the child might use it to identify himself to him. Now, in Ethiopia, it is believed that the child born as a result of the liaison between Solomon and the Queen of Sheba was Menelik I, the first Solomid emperor of Ethiopia. Now, the popularity of this version of the Sheba Solomon tale amongst Africans in the diaspora is responsible for the belief of many African Americans and Rastafarians who hold on to the notion of Ethiopia as the promised land. Thank you very much for being a part of this episode of the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please help us to sustain this series by sharing our videos with your friends and contacts. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you like the video. And then see you next time when we'll be trying to answer the questions whether or not the Ark of the Covenant is actually in Ethiopia and how we got there.
Hello everybody, this is Terrence Beverly, visionary of Igniters United Alliance. Please join me every Wednesday right here on Bullet in Flight Radio. Your story, our station, the best progressive Christian network in the world.
Looking for a place where faith breaks boundaries? Welcome to BIFR, Bullet in Flight Radio, an inclusive, progressive community of Christ followers, sharing real stories and bold ideas. This is your radio for hope, growth, and daring faith. Your story, our station. Tune in for new episodes every Friday and join believers who refuse to stay small. Visit https://www.just-dominic.com to listen and become part of the flight.
In the vast corridors of time, where the fates of nations are intertwined with the will of the divine, the story of Menelik's birth begins. Born of the union between King Solomon of Israel and the Queen of Sheba, their son was not just a prince by blood, but a king destined by prophecy. It was during the queen's legendary visit to Jerusalem that this union took place. Solomon, renowned for his wisdom, saw beyond the queen's regal beauty and into the depths of her soul. In their time together, they forged not only a personal bond, but a bridge between two great kingdoms. When the queen returned to Ethiopia, she carried with her a secret. She was with child, and from her would spring forth the lineage of kings. Time passed, and a son was born to the queen, Menelik, the first of his name, destined to rule Ethiopia. As Menelik grew, he learned of his father, the great King Solomon, and set his heart on meeting him. The day came when Menelik journeyed to Jerusalem, and upon his arrival, Solomon knew immediately that this was his son. The resemblance was undeniable, not only in appearance, but in spirit. Solomon embraced Menelik and recognized the destiny that lay before him. And so, as a final act of divine and royal legacy, Solomon bestowed upon his son Ethiopia's greatest gift, the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest that held the tablets of the Ten Commandments given by God to Moses. Solomon knew that with this, Ethiopia would become the spiritual successor to Israel, a nation blessed by divine favor. The ark was not sent alone. With it, Solomon dispatched his wisest men, scholars, and priests, so that Ethiopia might be a land not only of kings, but of wisdom and enlightenment. And so, Menelik returned to his homeland, carrying with him the ark, the embodiment of God's covenant, and a destiny intertwined with the divine. Upon his return, Menelik was crowned as the first emperor of Ethiopia, a title given to him not by men, but by the divine will of the Creator. The ark found its resting place in the sacred city of Axum, where it would stand as the eternal symbol of Ethiopia's chosen status. Through Menelik, the lineage of King Solomon and the legacy of the ark were forever intertwined with the fate of Ethiopia, a kingdom both of this world and beyond. Thus, the story of Menelik is not merely the tale of a prince becoming a king, but the fulfillment of a divine prophecy, a prophecy that the spirit of Israel would live on in a new land, blessed by the presence of the ark and the blood of Solomon himself. And so, Menelik's reign began, not just as a king, but as a symbol of the unbroken bond between heaven and earth.
Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Gladys Pruitt. Please be sure to check me out every Wednesday on the Hour of Power broadcast, right here on Bullet in Flight Radio. Your story, our station. The best progressive Christian network in the world.
Have you ever heard of an African king who stopped the European empire in its tracks? Not just with words, but with weapons, with wisdom, and with a vision for freedom that shook the world. In a time when almost all of Africa was falling under colonial rule, one man stood tall. His name was Menelik II, He was not just a king. He was a builder of nations, a warrior of wisdom, and the emperor who made history at the Battle of Adwa. This is not just a story of war. It's the story of pride, power, unity, and a moment when Africa said, "No more." Stay with us as we journey through the life of the African emperor who defeated one of Europe's mightiest empires, the Italians. This is the story of Menelik II. Now let's get started. Menelik II was born on August 17, 1844, in the region of Sheba, part of today's central Ethiopia. His birth name was Salamariam. His father was Haile Melekot, king of Sheba. From an early age, Menelik was surrounded by royal politics, power struggles, and the idea of leadership. But life was not always easy. When his father died in 1855, young Salamariam was taken by Emperor Tewodros II, who ruled Ethiopia at the time. He was held as a political prisoner at the imperial court for almost a decade. But Menelik was no ordinary prisoner. While others gave up, Menelik learned. He observed court politics, military strategies, and how power worked. He listened more than he spoke. And by the time he escaped in 1865, he had grown into a sharp-minded young man with a vision. Returning to Sheba, he declared himself king of Sheba. But he wanted more, not just for himself, but for his people. He wanted a strong, united Ethiopia. As the years passed, Menelik grew in influence. He expanded his territory, strengthened his army, and modernized his kingdom. He built roads, introduced new weapons, and started diplomatic relations with foreign powers. But one thing never changed: his dream of a powerful, independent Ethiopia. In 1889, Emperor Johannes IV, ruler of Ethiopia, was killed in battle. Menelik saw an opportunity. By then, he had earned the respect of many leaders across the country. With strong alliances and a powerful army, he declared himself Emperor of Ethiopia. And many accepted. He took the name Menelik II, in honor of the legendary son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, believed by Ethiopians to be the first emperor of their land. As emperor, Menelik continued building. He established Addis Ababa as the new capital, a city that would grow to become the heart of modern Ethiopia. He brought in electricity, telephones, printing presses, and even railways. Under his leadership, Ethiopia was modernizing while keeping its cultural roots. But outside the empire, danger was coming. Europe was in a rush to conquer Africa. This was the era known as the Scramble for Africa. Britain took Kenya and Uganda. France grabbed Djibouti. And Italy? Italy wanted Ethiopia. They had already claimed Eritrea to the north and hoped to make Ethiopia the next jewel in their colonial crown. But Menelik II had other plans. In 1889, after becoming emperor, Menelik signed the Treaty of Wuchel with Italy. It was meant to be a friendship treaty, a peace agreement. But there was a trick. The Italian version of the treaty said something very different from the Ethiopian version. In Amharic, it said Ethiopia could ask Italy for help with foreign affairs if it wanted to. But in Italian, it said Ethiopia must go through Italy for all foreign relations, turning Ethiopia into a protectorate. A protectorate meant loss of independence. When Menelik found out about the trick, he was furious. He rejected the treaty, tore it up, and told the world Ethiopia would never be anyone's colony. Italy, embarrassed and angry, decided to take Ethiopia by force. They believed it would be easy. After all, they had a modern army. They had guns, artillery, and European training. But what they didn't count on was the heart of Ethiopia. Menelik knew war was coming, and he prepared. He united the Ethiopian people like never before. Christian and Muslim, Highlanders and Lowlanders, nobles and farmers. He said, "We may have different customs, but we share one land, one faith, one blood. We must defend it together." His call worked. Tens of thousands answered. Some say over 100,000 Ethiopian warriors gathered, armed with rifles, spears, shields, and the spirit of freedom. Menelik's wife, Empress Teta Batul, also played a key role. She organized supplies, led troops, and even commanded a battalion herself. She was no queen in the shadows. She stood shoulder to shoulder with her people. Meanwhile, Italy was confident. They sent a large army under General Orest Baratieri. They marched toward the Ethiopian heartland, ready to crush the resistance. But Menelik had studied the land. He knew the mountains, the valleys, the weather, and the people. He had spies and scouts watching every move. And so, the two forces met at Adwa, in northern Ethiopia, on March 1st, 1896. What happened next would change history forever. It was early morning. The sun had not yet risen fully. Mist covered the rugged hills of Adwa. On one side, the Italian army, confident and well-armed. On the other, a united Ethiopian force, larger in number, fueled by purpose. The Italians believed Ethiopians were disorganized. They expected an easy win. But Menelik had a plan. He divided his army into several groups, surrounding the Italians from multiple sides. He used the terrain to his advantage. As the battle began, Ethiopian warriors charged with loud cries, rifles blazing and spears flying. The Italian troops were caught off guard. They tried to retreat, but the Ethiopians were everywhere. Bullets flew. Cannons roared. The land shook with the sound of resistance. Menelik led from the center. Empress Teta's forces fought fiercely on the right. Commanders like Ras Alula, Ras Michael, and Ras Mengesha led waves of attacks. For hours, the battle raged. By midday, the Italian lines had collapsed. Thousands of Italian soldiers were killed. Others surrendered or ran in panic. The Ethiopian victory was complete. The Battle of Adwa was not just a win, it was a message that Africans could fight back, that a united people could stop a colonial empire, that freedom, once fought for, could never be taken. This victory shocked Europe. Italy was humiliated. Ethiopia, on the other hand, stood proud, the only African country to defeat a European empire in a full-scale war during the scramble for Africa. News of the Battle of Adwa spread quickly. Across Africa, it sparked hope. Colonized nations saw Ethiopia as a symbol of resistance, a light in the darkness, proof that colonialism could be challenged. In Harlem, New York, African Americans celebrated. In South Africa, leaders like Nelson Mandela would later say Adwa gave them pride in their African roots. Italy, embarrassed and defeated, had no choice but to sign a peace treaty. They recognized Ethiopia's independence. Menelik's name became famous across the world. Even in Europe, people began to admire him, not just as a warrior, but as a wise leader. He didn't punish Italian prisoners. He treated them with respect and humanity. His goal was not revenge, but dignity. Ethiopia stood as a free African empire, respected by kings and presidents. After Adwa, Menelik II focused once again on building his nation. He built schools, hospitals, railways, and communication systems. He expanded trade and improved agriculture. He introduced coins, postal services, and modern government structures. He ruled with both strength and vision. And while he was not perfect, no leader is, he left behind a legacy few can match. Menelik died in 1913 after ruling Ethiopia for more than 2 decades. But his story didn't end there. To this day, he is remembered as the man who protected Ethiopia's independence, the emperor who refused to bow, the African lion who roared against colonialism and won. Statues of Menelik still stand in Addis Ababa. His face appears on stamps and history books. And every year, Ethiopians remember Adwa, not just as a battle, but as a victory for all of Africa. In conclusion, Menelik II was more than an emperor. He was a symbol of courage, a builder of dreams, a reminder that Africa is not weak, not passive, but strong, proud, and capable. His victory at Adwa was not just about guns and numbers. It was about unity. It was about vision. And most of all, it was about heart. In a world where Africa was seen as a land to be taken, Menelik said no, and the world listened. Today, as we look at history, we must remember stories like his, because they teach us that true power is not in how much land you take, but in how much you protect, not in how loud you speak, but in how strongly you stand. So the next time someone tells you African history is full of defeat, remind them of Menelik. Remind them of Adwa. Remind them that once, an emperor from Ethiopia faced an empire and won. Now, here's a question for you. What would the world look like today if more leaders had Menelik's courage, unity, and wisdom? Let us know in the comments. And if this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There are many more untold stories waiting to be heard. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.
Hey, there's no way you can hide it. If you drive drunk, they're gonna find you. So stop kidding yourself.
Sir, have you been drinking tonight? Sir, have you been drinking this evening?
Sir, have you been drinking tonight?
They will catch you and arrest you. Drive sober or get pulled over.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so...
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Looking for a place where faith breaks boundaries? Welcome to BIFR, Bullet in Flight Radio, an inclusive, progressive community of Christ followers, sharing real stories and bold ideas. This is your radio for hope, growth, and daring faith. Your story, our station. Tune in for new episodes every Friday and join believers who refuse to stay small. Visit https://www.just-dominic.com to listen and become part of the flight.
Your story, our station.